Operation Wine and Dine, the plan to conquer Earth without firing a shot. Admiral Bloor had never been known for his brilliance. In fact, most of the Galactic Council viewed him as more of a comic relief than a serious military strategist. But as he hovered in the center of the council chamber, his gelatinous form trembling slightly, whether from nerves or excitement, it was clear he believed he had something big this time. "Esteemed members of the council," Bloor began, his voice modulator warbling with effort as it tried to translate the squelching sounds of his native language into something more dignified. "I present to you Operation Wine and Dine." A ripple of confusion swept through the chamber. Tentacles twitched, mandibles clicked. One delegate from the Tharnak system let out a sigh so deep it fogged their translation dome. Yet again, Bloor was on the floor with another one of his ideas. Admiral High Counselor Zix said, her tall mantis-like figure leaning forward slightly, "Please tell me this is not another poetry bomb proposal." Bloor shook with indignation, or possibly determination. No, this one is different. This time, I've done my homework." He motioned toward a much smaller, more nervous alien beside him, Pipsqueak, his scientific advisor, who resembled a walking stress ball with glasses. "Our surveillance of Earth has revealed a very promising vulnerability," Bloor continued, tapping a control panel that brought up a holographic slideshow. The screen flickered, then displayed images of humans laughing, clinking glasses, lounging at vineyard estates, and swirling wine in oversized glasses. "Wine," Bloor announced. "They're obsessed with it." Pipsqueak cleared his throat. "Based on our data, humans consume approximately 24 billion liters of wine every Earth year. It's more than just a beverage. It's tied to social rituals, celebrations, even religion in some regions. They treat it with reverence." Bloor nodded eagerly. "They build entire cellars for it. They hoard special vintages like treasure. And the best part? They never suspect that something so cherished, so sophisticated, could be used against them." The room started to quiet. Even the skeptical delegates leaned in a little. "With our latest compound," Bloor said, pulling up a chemical structure so complex it made several beings squint, "we can infuse their wine with a highly effective mind control agent. Undetectable, completely odorless, tasteless, and biologically compatible." Pipsqueak jumped in. "The agent bonds to what they call tannins, naturally occurring compounds in wine. That's what gives wine its structure and bitterness. We've replicated the molecular signature perfectly. Our mind control agent attaches to those tannins, so when a human drinks wine, they're also ingesting our influence." Bloor's mass rippled with excitement. "And get this, the longer the wine is aged, the stronger the effect becomes. The more they cherish the wine, the deeper our control." A murmur ran through the chamber, but it was no longer doubtful. It was intrigued. High Counselor Zix tilted her head. "So the humans will willingly store and age your weapon, making it more potent themselves." "Exactly," Bloor said, a smug ripple crossing his surface. "We don't even have to rush. This plan matures with time." Another delegate raised a tendril. "But what about detection? Wouldn't they notice something was wrong? Wouldn't their scientists catch on?" "Unlikely," said Pipsqueak, adjusting his datapad. "The compound is chemically indistinguishable from natural wine elements. Our simulations suggest no human technology can detect it, at least. Not in time." The council was silent for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, the first tentacle raised in approval, then another, and another. Within seconds, the chamber was alive with flickering bioluminescence and shifting color patterns, clear signs of alien agreement. A vote was taken. Operation Wine and Dine was approved unanimously. Bloor was practically glowing. It was a rare moment. For once, the council wasn't laughing at him. They weren't reminding everyone of the time he tried to win over an aggressive species with weaponized limericks. They weren't bringing up the planet of the ducks incident. No, this time, they were impressed. He could feel it. "Admiral Bloor," Counselor Zick said, "you may proceed. How soon can we begin?" "Our agents are already in place," Bloor replied confidently. "Embedded as wine critics, sommeliers, vineyard workers, even winery tour guides. We've launched in France, Italy, California, Argentina, Australia. Anywhere the humans love their wine." "And the compound?" asked a thin, crystalline being from the finance committee. "Already being distributed through select bottles," Pipsqueak confirmed. "By the time the next Earth holiday arrives, their most trusted wine brands will be fully enhanced." There was a long pause. Then Zix leaned back in her seat. "It's an unorthodox approach, Admiral, but I must admit it's clever, subtle, cultural, low cost, high impact." Bloor gave a modest squish. "Why conquer with war, when you can conquer with hospitality?" As the council began to file out, some buzzing with excitement, others already placing bets on how the mission would unfold. Pipsqueak tugged gently on Bloor's side. "Sir," he whispered, "shouldn't we run more tests? Human biology is erratic. Their systems break down chemicals in strange ways. What if the compound metabolizes differently than expected?" Bloor waved a lazy appendage. "Nonsense. It's just fermented grape juice. What's the worst that could happen?" Pipsqueak said nothing. He simply tapped a note into his datapad. "Update resume. Research escape pods. Just in case. Undercover among the vines, launching Operation Wine and Dine." The plan was simple. The execution, not so much. Once the Galactic Council had greenlit Operation Wine and Dine, it was time to put boots, or more accurately, pseudopods on the ground. Agents were dispatched to Earth, fully disguised, fully briefed, and only marginally prepared for what was about to become one of the most chaotic infiltration missions in galactic history. Agent Gloop, head of the Earth infiltration team, had been assigned the role of a wine critic in France. Under the alias Gerald Snootsworth, he was expected to blend seamlessly into the world of human wine connoisseurs. The problem was, Gloop had no idea how humans actually drank wine, let alone how to sound like someone who understood it. He stood in the middle of a prestigious vineyard in Bordeaux, clutching a glass of red liquid and staring at it like it held the secrets of the universe. Around him, human critics were swirling their glasses, sniffing, tasting, muttering words like earthy, bold, and notes of oak. Gloop tried to imitate them without looking suspicious. "Oh," he said, raising his glass. "I'm detecting definite grape, and perhaps a subtle hint of more grape." The other critics nodded seriously, scribbling in their notebooks. Gloop nearly collapsed with relief. Apparently, pretending to know wine was mostly about sounding confident and vague. That, at least, he could do. Meanwhile, across the planet in California's Napa Valley, Agent Splat was facing her own challenge. Disguised as a vineyard worker named Barbara, she was expected to operate basic human machinery involved in winemaking. Unfortunately, alien anatomy and grape crushers did not mix well. She stared at the metal contraption with deep suspicion. "You just put the grapes in the top?" she asked for the 5th time. Her human supervisor, clearly exasperated, nodded. "Yes, Barbara, just like the last 4 times. Are you sure you put previous winery experience on your application?" "Oh, absolutely," Splat said, giving a suspiciously wide grin. As she leaned in, her head nearly detached from her body, forcing her to awkwardly reattach it with a small pop. "I used to make wine all the time back in Nebraska." "Nebraska?" the supervisor repeated slowly. That well-known wine region. Yes, very prestigious. Underwater vineyards. Quite the innovation. The supervisor stared at her for a long moment, then walked away, muttering, "Hiring standards are really going downhill." Back at Mission Control, cleverly disguised as an unpopular wine bar in Cleveland, Ohio, Pipsqueak was coordinating the growing chaos. His datapad buzzed constantly with updates from field agents across the globe. He paced in circles. Stress eating a third pack of his favorite space cookies. Status report, he barked into the comms. "France is at 60% contamination," came Gloop's voice. Though Agent Wobble had to be removed after getting drunk and attempting to marry a grapevine. "Italy's at 75, said Splat, sounding winded. "But we lost Agent Squish. Got into a heated debate with a local farmer about whether aliens are real. The farmer won. California is fully covered," added another voice, although our wine critic tried to drink straight from a fermentation tank. "We told the humans it was performance art." Pipsqueak buried his face in his stubby hands. "Just finish the job. And someone tell Agent Bubble no, he cannot put the mind control compound into beer instead. Wine is the mission. Wine is classy." The agents pressed on, despite setbacks and increasing signs of mission creep. Some operatives began showing genuine interest in winemaking. Agent Gloop even started a wine blog, though every review featured the same description: hints of grape. Very grape forward. At one point, Agent Ziff, working a vineyard in Argentina, sent a selfie of herself stopping grapes with humans, surrounded by laughter and glasses raised high. The caption read, "Best mission ever. Also, I might be drunk." By mid-December, just weeks before Earth's largest wine drinking event, New Year's Eve, the mission was nearing completion. Every major wine-producing region had been seeded with the compound. The agents had played their roles well, despite some creative improvisations. Pipsqueak compiled the data, cross-referenced vineyard shipping logs, and pinged Admiral Bloor with a final update. "Operation Wine and Dine is complete," he reported. "Every major region is contaminated. The compound is in circulation. We're ready." Bloor, now lounging in what he called his victory swirly relaxed blob-like posture he adopted in moments of self-congratulation, grinned. "Excellent. Now we wait for the humans to do what they do best." "Drink themselves into submission?" Pipsqueak asked. "Exactly." Still, a part of Pipsqueak remained uneasy. He had tried several times to raise concerns about human biology. It was unpredictable, wild, full of enzymes and microflora that didn't behave like anything in the rest of the galaxy. But each time he brought it up, Bloor waved him off with some version of, "It's just alcohol, how complicated could it be?" And to be fair, all signs pointed to success. The wine was flowing. The humans were buying. No red flags. Not yet. But even as the mission reached its peak, cracks were beginning to show. In one region, an agent had been caught asking why the fermentation juice was so stingy on the mind control feelings. In another, a winery owner had grown suspicious of his new critic employee, who insisted on licking the barrels to check tan absorption. In Cleveland, 2 human patrons stumbled into the alien command center by accident, mistaking it for a quirky hipster bar. The team had to pretend it was a wine-themed escape room to avoid exposure. Despite the mounting oddities, Pipsqueak couldn't deny the numbers. Distribution targets had been met. Supply chains infiltrated. Reviews online were glowing. One human wine influencer even described a bottle as life-altering. Pipsqueak had nearly fainted with excitement until he realized it was a metaphor. With the final shipments of the enhanced vintage now reaching shelves worldwide, Pipsqueak gave the go-ahead for the agents to stand down and blend into human society until further notice. And then they waited. New Year's Eve was approaching. The plan had been executed. Everything was in motion. And yet Pipsqueak still had one line at the top of his to-do list: run full biological compatibility tests. It remained unchecked, but he told himself, surely it didn't matter anymore. Surely nothing could go wrong now. The unexpected backfire. Humanity drinks the invasion. New Year's Eve. Across Earth, the countdown to midnight had already begun. In every time zone, from the vineyards of Tuscany to the cellars of Napa, from rooftop bars in Paris to snowy festivals in Japan, corks popped, glasses clinked, and laughter filled the air. Back in Cleveland, Ohio, inside what appeared to be a failing wine bar, but was in fact the central command for Operation Wine and Dine, Admiral Bloor hovered just inches from the giant monitor, his gelatinous mass visibly trembling with anticipation. Around him, a half-circle of analysts and officers leaned in, watching live feeds from around the globe. "This is it," Bloor whispered. "This is the night the humans fall under our influence." All the conditions had been met. The wine supply was contaminated. The compound had been distributed through thousands of brands. Shipment data showed it had reached every major country. Surveillance feeds confirmed bottles were already being opened. This was the culmination of years of planning, and Bloor's first real chance to prove he wasn't the joke of the Galactic Council. Pipsqueak stood nearby, gripping his data pad so tightly it was starting to crack. He hadn't slept in 3 Earth days, running logistics, updates, and last-minute agent reports. And even now, as humans began to drink, he still felt uneasy. The data didn't sit right. Something didn't add up, but Bloor was locked in. "They're drinking," the Admiral said. "Just watch. Any moment now, they'll start showing signs. Slurred speech, vacant eyes, extreme suggestibility. Let's see who kneels first." The screen flicked to Sydney, Australia. A rooftop New Year's party was in full swing. Humans danced in uncoordinated circles, singing what one analyst identified as a song called "Livin' on a Prayer." Someone was chugging wine directly from a plastic cup with glow sticks in their hair. "Are they submitting?" Bloor asked. I don't think so," Pipsqueak said, squinting at the feed. "They appear to be line dancing." Bloor's surface shifted to a deepening shade of purple. He tapped another feed, this one from Venice, a wedding reception. Wine flowed like water. Laughter echoed across the marble floor. "They'll feel the effects soon," Bloor said. "Just wait." 3 hours passed. Nothing. If anything, wine consumption had increased. In Argentina, people were scooping red wine out of large bowls mixed with chopped fruit, calling it sangria. In Paris, a sommelier tasted one of the most heavily contaminated bottles and said it could use a few more years in the cellar. In Georgia, the country, not the US, state, locals were raising drinking horns and giving rousing toasts in between sips of the good stuff. Bloor began to sag. I don't understand," he muttered. Pipsqueak shifted nervously. "Sir, I've been meaning to show you something." Bloor waved him off. "Sir, it's important. Reports from our field agents suggest unexpected resistance. Not just resistance. Tolerance." "What kind of tolerance?" Bloor asked sharply. Pipsqueak held up his datapad. "Human biology is metabolizing the compound the same way it metabolizes alcohol. It's not triggering neural submission. It's just giving them a nice buzz. Some of them say it adds flavor." Bloor froze. "You mean to tell me our most advanced mind control agent has been reduced to a flavor enhancer?" "Effectively, yes," Pipsqueak said. A wine critic in California called it surprisingly smooth with complex undertones of oak, blackberry, and existential dread. One analyst at the console raised her hand. "Sir, we just received a video from a wine tasting in France. An agent observed a human sommelier down an entire bottle of compound batch 12B, the strongest version we have." "Finally," Bloor said, leaning in. The video played. The human swirled the wine, sniffed it, took a large sip, and paused thoughtfully. "A bit young," the man said, "but showing promise. Could use another decade in the cellar." Bloor slumped. No. More feeds came in. In Los Angeles, a couple used a bottle of mind control wine to make something called mulled wine, served warm with cinnamon and orange peels. In Berlin, a wine bar hosted a contest to see who could drink the most of the mystery vintage without falling off their bar stool. And then came the kicker. Someone had posted an online review. The title, 2024's Mystery Vintage. A delightfully mind-bending experience. The author, Buck Thompson, Earth's most influential wine critic, the council had feared Buck might catch on. Instead, he seemed to love it. In his video review, Buck sat surrounded by empty bottles, looking vaguely puzzled. "This one's got a finish that's hard to pin down," he said. "Hints of blackberry, spice, and what I can only describe as an attempt at mind control. Tastes like someone tried to invade my brain, but in a fun, experimental way. Honestly, kinda into it." Bloor turned slowly to Pipsqueak. "What is wrong with them?" Pipsqueak shrugged. "According to the data, humans have a highly adaptive liver, an absurd tolerance for psychoactive compounds, and a long history of consuming substances that should absolutely kill them." Bloor's faceplate blinked. "They're not even noticing the invasion." "Not only that," Pipsqueak added, "they think it's a new wine trend." By the following morning, new footage showed humans using the contaminated wine at spiritual retreats, wine yoga classes, and themed costume parties. None of them reported strange behavior unless you counted spontaneous karaoke battles and philosophical debates about whether grapes have feelings. And worse, some humans had begun marketing it. One trendy bar in New York advertised it as a psychedelic vintage with galactic overtones. They charged double. Pipsqueak could barely process it. "They're selling our invasion wine as a premium experience." Bloor didn't respond. He just slowly slid off his command platform and puddled onto the floor. "I tried," he mumbled. "I really did. We were going to take over the world with Merlot." The silence was broken only by an analyst quietly muttering, "Sir, someone just made a wine slushy with the compound in Vegas. Called it Brain Freeze Protocol. It's trendy on social media." Bloor didn't move. "The truth comes out, Buck Thompson and the Grape Justice League." By early January, strange things were happening in the wine world. At first, it was easy to dismiss. A few unusually euphoric reviews. A new batch of wines with odd flavor notes. A sudden surge of online influencers talking about mystery vintages with alien-level complexity. But Buck Thompson wasn't buying it. The man had tasted everything from sun-scorched Zinfandels in California to hand-crushed Pinot Noir in New Zealand. He once described a 2012 Shiraz as tasting like a fireplace full of broken dreams. He knew wine, and something about this new batch was off. It wasn't just the flavor. It was how it made him feel. He sat in his home tasting room in rural Oregon, surrounded by half-empty bottles and his ever-growing notebook. On the table in front of him sat the bottle that had been bugging him for days. No label he recognized. The name printed on it: Chateau Neural Subjugation 2024 Vintage. He swirled it in the glass again, trying to identify what exactly was bothering him. It didn't smell bad. In fact, It smelled wonderful, deep red fruit, oak, the faintest hint of spice. But it also made him feel like someone was gently whispering in his brain. He picked up his recorder. "Tasting notes," he said aloud. "Blackberry, oak, attempted mind control. Finish is long and complex, possibly laced with alien intentions. Either I'm losing my mind, or something bigger is happening." That same day, across town, Dr. Elena Rodriguez was running lab tests at the Global Wine Authentication Board. Her team had received dozens of samples from across the world, all flagged as part of what some were calling the 2024 incident vintage. Elena stared at the data on her screen. "None of this makes sense," she muttered. "Same varietals, same fermentation timelines, same barrels, but there's a foreign compound in every single bottle, one we've never seen before." Her assistant Maria looked up, clearly dazed. "Sorry, what?" "Maria," Elena said sharply, "are you drinking the sample again?" I had to know what all the hype was about," Maria said sheepishly. "Also, this one pairs really well with Gouda. Like, really well. Also, I think I'm ready to submit to a higher power." "Stop drinking the evidence," Elena snapped, grabbing the glass. "And what do you mean by submit?" "I don't know," Maria said with a shrug. "Just feels like maybe we should all unite under one collective authority, preferably with good cheese pairings." Elena narrowed her eyes. Something was definitely wrong. She picked up her phone and called Buck. "Remember that time you said you could taste the emotional state of a winemaker in a Bordeaux?" she asked. "Yeah," Buck said. "Turned out he was going through a divorce, and it made the finish bitter. Why? I think I owe you an apology. We've got a situation." Within days, they'd pulled together a small team Buck's old tasting crew, plus Elena, Maria, and a couple of retired sommeliers with questionable ethics and excellent palates. They met in Buck's tasting room and gave themselves a name that Buck insisted on printing on trucker hats: the Grape Justice League. They built a map on the wall, connected with red string and wine stains. Every major wine region had been hit within weeks of each other. Each new critic who had shown up was suspicious in some way. One had trouble maintaining the same number of limbs. Another kept forgetting that humans can't stretch their necks 3 feet to reach a high shelf. And every new vineyard worker hired in the last month? Either John Smith or Jane Smith. Even the ones with tentacles. "Okay," Maria said, "now fully banned from drinking samples. So aliens tried to control the planet by spiking our wine. And it didn't work because we drink too much." "Exactly," Buck nodded. "Also, they're really bad at faking wine knowledge." One guy wrote a review that just said, "contains grape," that was it. Elena held up one of the bottles. "And look at this, Chateau Neural Subjugation. That's not a real label. That's a sci-fi novel title." They knew they couldn't go to the local police, or even national authorities. This was global and bigger than anything Earth had ever seen. But Buck had an idea. "My cousin Jack," he said. "He works in interstellar diplomacy now. Ever since the tequila incident on that Norwegian cruise ship, he's been stationed off-world. If anyone can get us a seat at the table with whoever's behind this, it's him." 2 weeks later, Ambassador Jack Martinez stood before the Galactic Council. He had swagger, confidence, and a briefcase full of Earth's most dangerous spirits. "Distinguished members of the Council," Jack began, doing his best not to laugh at Admiral Bloor, who looked like a puddle of regret. "We need to talk about your wine problem." "We know nothing of this," said High Counselor Zix, antennae twitching nervously. "Oh, you mean this?" Jack placed a bottle on the podium. 2024 Chateau Neural Subjugation. Delicious. You really nailed the whole enslave Earth with elegance thing. Shame it didn't work." A gasp echoed across the chamber. "How did you know?" Bloor finally asked, regaining enough form to speak. "Well," Jack said, "first off, nobody believes Nebraska is famous for underwater vineyards. But mainly, you made one critical mistake." He opened his briefcase. "You assumed wine is the strongest thing humans drink." He held up a clear bottle. "This is vodka. It's essentially potato juice with a vendetta." Then another, tequila, known to make humans think they can speak dolphin. Finally, a mason jar filled with a slightly glowing liquid. "And this is my uncle's moonshine. We use it to clean engine parts." The council recoiled. "You drink these voluntarily?" Pipsqueak asked, jaw falling off in shock. "Sometimes just because it's Tuesday," Jack replied. "And your compound? Compared to this stuff, it's basically sparkling juice." Then he grinned. In fact, we kind of like it. Our top critic said it added depth to the vintage. We're thinking of turning it into a premium feature. But we'd need to talk licensing." As the council broke into a flurry of calculation, analysis, and frantic sniffing of new bottles, Bloor slumped in his chair. The invasion had failed, but somehow it had opened an entirely new market. He looked over at Jack, who raised a glass in his direction. "To peace," Jack said, "and profitable accidents." Bloor sighed, lifted his own glass, and echoed quietly, "To humanity, the species that can't be conquered because they already conquered alcohol." From failed invasion to fine export, humanity's galactic drink boom. 1 year after the incident that should have brought Earth to its knees, the Galactic Council headquarters looked nothing like it had before. Gone were the cold metallic chambers, the intimidating guards, and the stern order of military precision. In their place, warm lighting, laughter, ambient jazz, and the smell of something suspiciously fruity and fermented wafting through the air. The event banners read, "First Annual Intergalactic Wine and Spirits Festival, hosted by Earth." At the center of the celebration, Admiral Bloor, once the architect of a galactic mind control plan, turned interstellar embarrassment, stood by the Earth booth, a stemmed glass cradled awkwardly in one gelatinous appendage. He took a sip of something labeled Moonshine Cider Reserve, small batch, extremely cautionary, and let out a slow, approving ripple. "You know," he said to no one in particular, "this turned out much better than planetary subjugation." Buck Thompson, now Earth's unofficial wine ambassador, was swirling a deep red in a nearby tasting session. A group of alien dignitaries clustered around him as he held the glass up to a light. "Notice the subtle mind-bending qualities," Buck explained, totally straight-faced. "We refined the original compound into what we now market as our conspiracy theory line. Each bottle gives you the sudden belief in a different outlandish theory. This blend, for instance, makes you 100% convinced Earth's moon is a hollow alien base." "Fascinating," murmured a three-eyed delegate, sipping thoughtfully. "And this is considered enjoyable?" "Please," Buck scoffed. "We once invented a drink that makes you think you can dance. And we sell out every year." Nearby, Pipsqueak, no longer a stressed-out assistant, but now CEO of an intergalactic consulting firm, was showing off a new beverage innovation to a crowd of xenochemists. "We call it quantum liquor," he explained proudly. "Each bottle exists in multiple intoxication states until observed. You could be sober, buzzed, or spiritually transformed depending on how you measure it. One lizard-like being raised a claw. What happens if you mix it with Earth's moonshine?" Pipsqueak paled, don't, but of course, someone already had. In a back booth, a sentient gas cloud was temporarily stuck in 3 dimensions, loudly trying to teach nearby beings how to play something called beer pong. The ping-pong ball kept passing through him. Across the hall, Ambassador Jack Martinez stood in the diplomatic lounge, shaking cocktails with High Counselor Zix. She was mixing with all 6 appendages at once, determined to learn Earth mixology from the ground up. "The key to a good Manhattan," Jack explained, dodging a wildly enthusiastic shake, "is to act like you know what you're doing, even if you absolutely don't. Same principle applies to most diplomacy, actually." Zix's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "When we first encountered Earth, we thought you were primitive. You willingly consume poisons for pleasure." Jack grinned. "Yeah, and then we turn it into art. That's sort of what we do. We take things that should destroy us and make them fun." Zix looked around. Beings from over 40 star systems mingled around tasting booths. The Zorax delegation had developed an unexpected fondness for craft iPass. The Quantum Collective had taken over the port and sherry table, and were now deep in philosophical debate. A group of silicon-based life forms were sipping mineral water, turns out. It gave them a mild buzz. "I suppose," Zix said slowly, "we underestimated you." "Most people do," Jack said, raising his glass. Back at the Earth booth, Blore watched the chaos unfold. He was no longer an admiral. He'd stepped down from the military. His new title, Director of Intergalactic Beverage Relations. It was a demotion on paper. In practice, it came with a corner office, a personal bartender, and significantly less screaming. He took another sip of his drink and looked over at Jack, who approached with a bottle under one arm and a smirk on his face. "You know," Jack said, "I still don't understand how your surveillance team missed all our other drinks during the planning stage." "We thought they were cleaning products," Blore admitted. "Jägermeister, Fireball, that one drink with bacon fat and whiskey. That seemed like chemical warfare." "To be fair," Jack chuckled, "we're not entirely sure Jägermeister isn't chemical warfare." They both laughed. "Seriously though," Blore continued, "I launched a planetary takeover operation. I spent 5 years engineering the compound. I handpicked every field agent. And now, you're hosting cocktail hour." Jack finished. "I've got a vineyard on Mars now," Blore said with a touch of pride. "It's not bad. Martian soil gives a nice minerality. You should come by. Gladly. As long as you're not trying to control my mind this time." "No promises," Blore winked, or the closest a gelatinous creature could come to winking. They raised their glasses. "To failed invasions," Jack said. "To successful drinks," Blore replied. 1 year ago, Earth had been on the verge of becoming a mind-controlled colony. Now, humanity's wine and spirits exports accounted for 30% of all galactic trade. Buck Thompson had his own line of brain-tickling blends. Pipsqueak's company developed flavors for different species. Jack was negotiating interplanetary bartending programs. Even Agent Gloop, who had never dropped the Gerald Snootsworth persona, was now a respected wine critic with his own show on alien television. His latest review, "This vintage smells of grape, ambition, and possible temporal shifts. Delightful." And Earth? Earth was thriving. New vineyards opened in orbit, leveraging zero gravity to age wine in unique ways. Deep-sea breweries pumped out experimental beers for aquatic clients. And there were whispers that someone had fermented black hole radiation just to see what would happen. It was chaos. It was unregulated. It was a legal nightmare. But it was working. In his private office, now decorated with a mix of failed invasion plans and collectible corkscrews, Bloor leaned back in his chair. He looked out the window, watching shuttles arrive for the evening tasting sessions. There had been no need for mind control, he realized. No need for domination or force. All they'd ever needed to do was share a drink. That's what humans did best, after all. They adapted, they resisted, and when confronted with the unknown, they laughed, raised a glass, and said, "Cheers." A soft knock came at the door. Pipsqueak poked his head in. "Sure, there's a problem," Bloor sighed. "Let me guess. Someone mixed quantum liquor with moonshine again." "Worse," Pipsqueak said. "Someone added absinthe to both and tried to use it to power a spaceship." Bloor groaned. "And did it work?" Pipsqueak hesitated. "Yes. But now they're stuck in a musical timeline." Bloor stared at him. "Everyone sings their emotions," Pipsqueak added. Bloor downed the rest of his drink. "Get the tasting team. We're going in." What doesn't kill us? Humanity's greatest superpower. The Intergalactic Wine and Spirits Festival had officially entered its third day, and already 3 universal laws of physics had been rewritten. The air inside the council hall was thick with a blend of excitement, fermented molecules, and something that vaguely smelled like burnt honey and regret. Beings from every corner of the galaxy wandered through booths, sipping from oddly shaped glasses, laughing in 32 languages, and in one notable case, floating slightly off the ground. In the center of it all, Admiral Bloor sat at a sleek metallic bar, now permanently tinted a soft rose hue from his increasingly enthusiastic consumption of Earth wine. His tentacle rested gently on a coaster that read, "Drink responsibly, even across dimensions." Across from him, Jack Martinez nursed a dark amber drink that was either bourbon or aged battery fluid. It was hard to tell with the new hybrid concoctions. They were no longer enemies, not diplomats, not conqueror and survivor. Just 2 beings with a shared respect for strange liquids and even stranger outcomes. "You know," Bloor said, tilting his glass, "when we first discovered Earth's wine obsession, I thought I'd found the perfect vector, a sacred ritual, so tightly tied to their identity that they wouldn't question it. Subtle, elegant. Psychological warfare through Merlot." Jack chuckled. "You weren't wrong about the obsession. Just underestimated the dosage we're used to." "Underestimated," Bloor huffed. "Your people metabolized our mind control compound the way a sandworm digests minerals. By the time the effect should have taken hold, they were throwing themed parties about it." Jack nodded, grinning. "Sangria Saturdays. That really took off." "Did you know someone made an IPA infused with your original neural agent?" Bloor groaned. "Why?" "They said it brought out the notes of trauma," Jack replied casually. "Sold out in an hour." Bloor swirled his drink slowly, watching the light catch the ripples in the liquid. "I've spent the better part of my life studying planetary vulnerability, biological weaknesses, psychological tendencies. Earth was supposed to be soft, emotionally volatile, addicted to sentiment and storytelling." "You got that part right," Jack admitted, "but you missed the flip side." Bloor looked up. "Which is?" Jack leaned back, resting his boot on the footrail. "We don't run from danger, we toast to it." There was a long pause as that sank in. "That's what makes you terrifying," Bloor said softly. "You face toxins, trauma, fear, and instead of hiding, you raise a glass and turn it into tradition." "Honestly," Jack replied, "we don't do it because it's brave. We do it because, well, it's how we cope. It's how we connect. Wine for grief, beer for heartbreak, whiskey for bad decisions. There's a drink for every failure and every win." Bloor tapped the rim of his glass thoughtfully. "We tried to weaponize your culture, and instead, it absorbed us. Now you're getting it," Jack said. That's our real superpower. We metabolize everything, even conquest. The door to the lounge slid open with a pleasant chime, and Pipsqueak hurried in, waving a tablet in both tiny hands. "Gentlemen, sorry to interrupt," he said breathlessly. "You need to see this." He placed the tablet on the bar between them. It displayed a data report one Bloor recognized instantly. Shipping manifests, trade figures, licensing requests, profit margins. And at the top, Earth beverage exports, 37 of all galactic trade. Bloor blinked. "We're the largest drink supplier in the quadrant?" Jack let out a low whistle. "Damn, I knew we were gaining market share, but..." Pipsqueak nodded eagerly. "We've now got cross-species cocktail bars on 7 moons, 3 asteroid colonies, and 1 artificial planet. The Zorax drink kombucha now. The silicon-based life forms figured out how to get tipsy on mineral water infused with grapefruit essence. And the quantum hive. They're experimenting with bitters. We created an industry," Bloor muttered. "By accident." Jack raised his glass. "Some of the best ideas start that way." In the tasting pavilion, Agent Gloob, still maintaining his Gerald Snootsworth identity, was now a celebrity wine judge. He stood on a raised platform, swirling a glowing green liquid in a crystal goblet. "I'm detecting notes of grape," he declared, as usual. "But also temporal displacement, and possibly mild violations of causality. Excellent finish." A round of applause followed. Cameras flashed. Somewhere, a producer was already drafting a proposal for the Intergalactic Palette, a new Holovision reality series starring Gloop, Buck, and a rotating cast of alien sommeliers. Back inside the bar, Bloor looked around at the festival. The laughter, the music, the interspecies bonding over weird drinks, and even weirder backstories. He couldn't deny it anymore. The invasion had failed, but the legacy? It was something entirely unexpected. "You know what I've realized," he said quietly to Jack. "We thought power was control, influence, tactics. But maybe real power is being the one who brings people to the table." Jack nodded slowly. "Yeah, and make sure everyone's glass is full." Outside, Elena Rodriguez walked through the festival with Maria, pointing out various samples for testing. Maria, still technically banned from drinking evidence, carried a notebook and a breathalyzer, just to be safe. "That one has trace notes of wormwood and cinnamon," Elena muttered. "Probably borderline illegal." Maria pointed to another booth. "What about that one? The drink that makes you see the past lives of your ancestors?" Elena narrowed her eyes. "We're still waiting on clinical trial." At the far end of the event, a new booth opened with flashing signs that read, "Introducing emotionally infused wine, each bottle a mood." This red blend was inspired by heartbreak. Hints of cherry, ash, and regret. Finishes with a surprisingly hopeful aftertaste. Maria sniffed it. "Honestly, that sounds like most of my 20s. Back inside, Bloor stood slowly and extended a gelatinous hand to Jack. "I may not have conquered your world," he said, "but I'd like to propose a partnership." Jack shook his hand firmly. "Let's make it a joint venture." "To humanity," Bloor said, lifting his glass. "To the species that looks at poison and says, 'Let's drink it and name it after a fruit.'" They clinked glasses. Somewhere behind them, a siren went off. Someone had tried to infuse tequila with quantum liquor again. A brief flash of light suggested the bartender had briefly existed in 3 locations at once before reappearing in a martini glass. Just another day in humanity's newest export industry, intergalactic bartending. The last toast, why you'll never conquer Earth. The party was dying down. Somewhere in the upper levels of the Galactic Council Hall, the lights had dimmed to a soft golden hue, and the last notes of music faded into quiet laughter and the occasional clink of glass. The first annual Intergalactic Wine and Spirits Festival was officially over, but no one wanted to leave just yet. Admiral Bloor sat alone in the Earth Pavilion, nursing the final drops of a strange but strangely pleasant liquid from a small shot glass. The label had read Dragon Fruit Jalapeno Vodka. Distilled in the Mojave. He didn't know what a jalapeno was. He didn't care. It burned, it tingled, and it made him feel like maybe, just maybe, he could forget how this all started. Across the room, Jack Martinez was leaning against a bar counter with Buck Thompson, both sipping something dark and smoky while watching a group of quantum beings attempt a synchronized dance routine to Earth disco. Buck let out a chuckle. They've almost got the rhythm. Still off by about 2 dimensions, though. Jack grinned. Hey, better than my uncle's second wedding. They both laughed, but there was a quiet reflection hanging in the air. A realization that no one wanted to say out loud just yet. Bloor finally stood and made his way over. His steps were uneven, but not from drink, just the weight of hindsight. I owe you both an apology, he said, stopping beside them. Oh, nah, just for the assumption. Buck raised an eyebrow, that you could brainwash humanity with wine. Bloor nodded. That you could be controlled at all. Jack set down his glass. You're not the first to think that. Won't be the last. But you might be the first to actually learn something from it. Bloor gestured around the room. You turned a mind control compound into a flavor enhancer, an invasion into a business deal. How? How does this species absorb chaos like it's nothing? Buck tilted his glass. It's not nothing. We just don't let it break us. Jack leaned forward, voice quiet but steady. The truth is, Admiral, we don't win because we're smarter, or stronger, or faster. We win because we endure. Bloor stared at him. Jack continued. You hit us with your best compound, something that took down 3 star systems, and all we did was throw a party. Not because we're fearless, but because fear doesn't stop us from living. Or drinking, Buck added. Bloor let out a soft ripple of laughter. Do you know how many species we've conquered? He asked. Hundreds. We studied their weak points, targeted their obsessions, slipped in through their comforts. It always worked, but your people took the very thing we weaponized and turned it into art. Buck sipped his drink. That's kind of our thing. It's infuriating, Bloor said honestly, and a little beautiful. Silence settled over the trio. Not awkward, just full. Full of things no one needed to explain anymore. Pipsqueak wandered over, clipboard in hand, glasses fogged from the ambient humidity of so many life forms in one place. Excuse me, sirs, he said, but I thought you should see this. He handed Jack a data report, trade projections, cultural integration timelines, beverage diplomacy routes. Jack whistled low. We're not just in the galactic economy. We're becoming a cultural export. Bloor blinked. You're not a conquered world. You're a trend. They all shared a look. Something between awe and concern. Buck shook his head. It's not just the wine, or the beer, or the stuff we ferment in barns. It's the fact that we keep standing up. We take heartbreak and brew it into bourbon, take loss and bottle it into red, take chaos and squeeze out joy. That's why you'll never control us, Jack added. We metabolize pain into laughter. We turn invasion into innovation. We find a way to toast, even when everything's burning. Blore looked down at the glass in his hand. "And here I thought you were fragile." "We are," Buck said, "but we don't break easy." At that moment, a chime sounded through the pavilion. A new message flashing across the main holo display. "Applications now open. Galactic Bartending Exchange, host planet, Earth." Blore stared. "You're teaching?" Jack grinned. "Might as well. If the galaxy's going to drink like us, they'd better learn how not to die from it." "Step 1, Buck said, lifting his glass. "Never trust anything served in a mason jar labeled, 'Just try it.'" Pipsqueak nodded solemnly. That's how Agent Wobble lost 2 weeks. Another chime. This time, it was a live broadcast Earth's representative addressing the entire council via a casual video feed from a New Orleans bar. "Distinguished members of the galaxy," the Earth rep said, holding up a frothy glass. "Cheers to the strangest peace treaty in history, and to the only planet crazy enough to turn a hostile takeover into a tasting menu." Blore smiled slowly. "You win," he said. Jack raised his drink. "We don't need to win. We just need to last long enough to make it funny later." There was no more arguing after that. As the council hall dimmed and guests began to filter out, a strange new tradition began. Beings from a dozen species raised glasses of unfamiliar beverages, each one a flavor of Earth's stubborn, chaotic heart, and made toasts in broken English, awkward phonics, and heartfelt gibberish. "To Earth," one crystalline ambassador said, "may your drinks always outpace your diplomacy." "To humans," said another, "the only species who sees poison and says, 'Let's try that twice.'" "To the grape," Buck said, "for carrying more cultural baggage than most diplomats." "To tequila," Jack added, "for helping us forget everything we just toasted." And finally, Blore, once an invader, now just a connoisseur, raised his final glass of the night. "To the species that should have fallen, but danced instead." They drank. And somewhere, in the quiet after the party, humanity kept doing what it always had, making the impossible just another round.